I'm sure many of you know Jim Cummings as a writer, director, star, and owner of one of the most magnificent moustaches I've ever seen, in the feature film Thunder Road, which won the Grand Jury Prize at South by Southwest, and was based on his Sundance award-winning short of the same name. Welcome, Jim. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So where are you right now?
I am on the east side of Los Angeles in a tiny town called Franklin Village. It's a beautiful day, which is, yeah, terribly distracting that we can't go out.
And how are you spending your days? How are you spending lockdown?
I am editing a feature film that we shot in November and December. And so I was planning on being in the editing room in this apartment for a few months. I just wasn't planning on being so distracted by everything outside of the apartment. So yeah, my life hasn't really changed from what it was going to be, thankfully. And we're very lucky that we finished the movie. There are friends of ours who weren't able to finish their features. They were in the middle of production or right before production. So we are incredibly lucky. But my days are just spent doing sound design and tweaking color and learning After Effects to do visual effects for the movie, which I wasn't planning on doing a whole lot of, but there's a lot of things that we weren't planning on doing, and now we're doing them.
Well, we'll definitely get into all of that and sort of thinking about how to stay motivated and stay creative and sort of refigure figure plans for lockdown. But I thought just to sort of give some context to the conversation, and also to sort of illustrate why you're the perfect person to be talking to right now. It would be great to chat a little bit about Thunder Road and about the short and about your career and sort of how you got here. So perhaps you could talk just a little bit about the journey from making that feature, that short, and sort of getting that into Sundance and how that led to the feature.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a very strange roundabout way of making the Thunder Road feature. That's probably going to be different from most people. So I was a producer with no real aspirations of being an actor for about 6 years. And so I was working on commercials and sketch comedy and doing feature film productions like The Grief of Others and Lucretia, and I was doing music videos for this rapper named Lil Dicky, and I was just kind of freelance and just trying to do as many different productions as possible. But I knew I was decent. I knew that I felt like I had good sensibilities when it came to telling a story, and I was always like writing scripts and stuff. And then I started working at College Humor, and I was there for a few months doing sketch comedy. And it got to a point where I was making stuff, it was like 3 or 4 sketches a week as a producer without any creative say, and just watching other people become popular with their short films that I didn't think were very funny or I didn't think were very good. And that just became ambition in me. I was just like, just let me try it. I'm just going to try it myself. And then I wrote the Thunder Road short film as this like weird performance art piece in my car on the drives to work. And I did that for about 2 months. I like did it out loud and had the car radio, and I could play the songs and do some of the dancing and crying on my drives to work. And then we shot it in a single day. It's all one shot. So there's only one setup for the camera. And we shot it 6 times in a funeral home in Altadena, California. And then we submitted it to Sundance. And we didn't really know anybody who had ever screened at the festival. We had submitted 100 times, some of my shorts, some of my sketches and stuff, and never got in. And then we got a phone call about a month later saying that they wanted to play it. And we didn't have the rights to the Bruce Springsteen song. And then I just signed a contract saying, yeah, we have the rights to everything, just play the short. And then we won. And then we were just like, okay, now nobody's going to be able to see this thing because we don't have the rights to the Springsteen song and there's too many eyeballs on this thing. And then Bruce, we reached out to him and he was cool with it. And so we put it on Vimeo, which was incredible. And 2 or 3 months of trying to track the guy down. Yeah, he's a very nice guy. Of course, he's fucking Bruce Springsteen. Of course, he's a nice guy. And then we spent about 7 or 8 months, maybe longer, maybe a full year, just going around hoping that somebody would take us seriously. So we made like 10 more single take short films. My producer, Natalie Metzger, and I did that. And another one of those screened at Sundance and South by Southwest called The Robbery, which is a lot of fun. And so I was kind of this like short filmmaker for a long time, but that became my education in telling a story that was 90 minutes. I feel like if I hadn't made those short films and understood how I spoke the language of making movies, I wouldn't be very good at making features. I still think I'm not. And so I don't know, I spent this time trying to be taken seriously in longer format and realizing that nobody was ever going to take us seriously. And so my buddy, Zach Parker, who's one of our executive producers of the feature, said, let's just run a Kickstarter campaign. And so we pooled our money together, and then we asked the public if anybody wanted to help support a feature-length version of the short. And they said, yeah, so we raised 34 grand. And really that was it. It had no money from Hollywood. It had no real support from Hollywood. It was just my friends. Benjamin Wiesner's one of my longtime co-producers, came on board. Matt Miller from Vanishing Angle. We just had this like wonderful collective of people that were energized and wanted to, they had an axe to grind against the system. It was like, all right, well, screw them. We're going to go and do it ourselves. And we had so much potential energy, and I had written this thing, and it was pretty good. And then we shot it in 14 days in Texas, and then that's all that mattered. It didn't matter that Hollywood wasn't taking us seriously, or that we couldn't get anybody to take us seriously. The crew took it seriously, and we all really cared. And then we shot it, and we had the footage, and then I took it home and edited it for 3 or 4 months. And then that movie has a life of its own. It'll be on and available for everybody for 100 years. It's yeah, I think that's kind of how I became a feature filmmaker. Yeah, ass backwards. That's how. Yeah.
But it's sort of a remarkable story of not waiting for permission. It's something that we think about a lot in the UK. We're very lucky to have a pretty good public funding system, which puts a lot of work into developing new voices and emerging talent. But it can still then sometimes feel like you have to be anointed by one of the public funders to be able to progress. And I think you're such a great example of that thing of not waiting for permission.
Yeah, and sometimes a lot of that feeling of not being anointed, when you see all the cool kids getting celebrated and getting funding, and it can really be detrimental, not to the project, but to your own psyche. Like, I feel like it becomes this enormous inadequacy trap that it's a hurdle you have to get over of like, well, screw those people. Like, they're mainstream. I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to do something humiliating. And that will often make you a better filmmaker than the people that had it handed to them. Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised by that, going to the UK for the Thunder Road release, where some of the sentiment was like, well, I applied to the council, I applied to get funding, and so we'll have to see. Whereas in America, we don't have any of that. Like, there is no arts council that can really, there's no grants, and so everybody feels like they're on their own already, which is a leg up. And so my instinct was just to tell all the filmmakers out there, no, just go, just get a camera, or, take it from your school and go and shoot something. You don't need these, all of these things are traps of your mind of you just have to go out and do it and convince your friends to become a film crew.
And speaking of traps of your mind, confidence can also be something as to whether stepping up from 12 minutes to 90 minutes is a huge step. And I think a lot of filmmakers get caught in a trap of not necessarily believing in themselves and believing that they can do it. Was that an issue for you?
For sure. I made a 70-minute feature immediately graduating college in 2009, and it's kind of sucks. It's not a great movie, and I spent a year and a half in the editing room realizing every minute why it wasn't a good movie, and that became soul crushing. But also, if I could survive that, anything that I did after that was going to be exponentially more interesting. I feel like a lot of the faults that I had with my first real failure in making movies, I did that and then said, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to spend the next 6 years producing. And then that became an education for me. I think that confidence is I mean, it's terrible that that's the one thing that gets you over the hurdle of doing the thing, because most confident people are sometimes foolhardy, and like it's a sign that in Hollywood a lot of people are jerks that are successful because they're so overly confident. So yeah, I just pretended to be confident, and then that kind of tricked my brain into thinking, oh yeah, this I'll do fine.
And to go back to sort of the experience of actually shooting the thing, you were on such a low budget, and there's absolutely no room for error or for overrunning or for sort of going, if something doesn't quite work, going back and redoing it. You must have planned really, really carefully to make sure that you got the film that you needed. How did you approach that?
I approached Natalie Metzger, my producer, and she built the budget for it. And I said, hey, this is the script. This is what we're going to do. And then literally within her landing, we had like a 13-hour meeting. It was like the longest meeting I've ever been in. But she stripped, I think it was like 70 grand from the budget, like upon her landing in Austin, Texas. And it was like, there were things of like, okay, well, what house are we going to use for Jim's house? And then it's like, okay, cool. Does this house work? Because it's an Airbnb. And if we can shoot in the Airbnb, that also means that we can house 14 members of cast and crew here and save and overlap. And it was like amazing. So like, first off, having incredible producers that are able to, spread a penny very well. That was a dream come true. And they've done all of my films since. And so that's really helpful. And then also like having direct communication with the producers, where like there's a joke of Natalie coming in where we say, how many producers does it take to screw in a light bulb? Does it have to be a light bulb? And like so many times we have these conversations on set of like, does it actually have to be a spaceship, or can we just have like, a metal wall behind somebody and then light it interestingly and the frame is like that, and then you put in the sound design of being on a spaceship. Like there's so many times that we do that. Actually in the police station in the Thunder Road feature, I'm like on the phone and I'm talking to my estranged ex-wife, and we were saying, does it have, like, the police station was going to cost 10 grand for the day just to be able to shoot it inside of a real police station. And there was a moment where I thought, it doesn't have to be a police station. We just need a circulation desk, a wall behind me with like a blue line on it. And Charlie, our production designer, was like, oh yeah, I can give you a blue line, no problem. And so we just like, it's this broken down warehouse, and there's footage of it in the behind the scenes where you can see what the space actually looked like. But if we moved the camera at all, it's like collapsed walls. It just like, it doesn't look like a police station at all, but it doesn't matter because it's not in the frame. So yeah, I mean, it's just that. It's like you kind of write something and then figure out exactly what you need. But that, again, I became much more confident from being on sets and understanding that just alone, of like, that if it's not in the frame, it doesn't really matter. You can fake it.
And we should just to put it into context, the budget in UK pounds was about 150,000.
I mean, still, that's a lot to me. Like, I know that it doesn't sound like for like a feature, but like, I mean, I mean, that's a huge amount. I mean, like we shot a feature called 13 Cameras when I first moved out to LA for $35,000 in a backyard. And then that became this like global franchise, like a 200 grand to most independent American filmmakers is like, oh my God, I could do anything with this. Like, yeah, that still is a huge amount of money to us. We just shot our new feature for 350 grand in LA.
Wow. Oh, well, we'll definitely come on and talk about that a little bit later. I'd love to talk a little bit about the way you worked with the actors on Thunder Road. You've talked about the fact that you recorded the entire script yourself, acting out the entire script to send it to your actors of like, this is how I want you to do the performance. Was that a creative choice or a sort of strategic budgetary choice?
So it started out.
And how did they respond to that?
Yeah, it started out, yeah, it's a complicated thing because it's like, you don't want to insult somebody. Like, line reading is such a thing that was created by actors as a means of keeping the performance in the hands of the actors. It doesn't matter so much for animation directing because it has to be very specific. But like with live action directing, people say that you're not supposed to do that. And that just crippled me for years. That hurdle was just so big, where it's like, well, I could spend 2 hours describing to you how the inflection of this one line, this one word inside of a sentence changes the entire meaning of the sentence. And I could spend 2 hours rehearsing it with you and trying to get that out of you. Or I could just do it and be like, hey, I'm going to tell the joke, and then you elevate it from there. And so like my mentality at that point was just like, it's just going to take too long. We don't have the money to rehearse for 2 weeks to do this thing. And then also I just wanted to keep the project going. I didn't want to write a script and then send it to people for them not to read it. Even good friends of mine, like I send scripts to good friends of mine that's 90 pages and it takes them 2 months if they ever read it. And then I'll send somebody a podcast that I record of the script, and I put in music and sound design and I play all the characters, and it feels like an audio book or something like that, a radio play, and they'll listen to it in 2 hours. It's like, it was just, we're in the golden age of audio. I think, why aren't we able to do that? And so I started doing it early on as just a way of keeping the projects alive and like, giving people an idea of what the tone of the movie is. I always say, if it's easy to misinterpret a text message, it's really easy to misinterpret a screenplay. And there's just no point in doing that. Why not just record it if you have the technology to do it?
And is that something you've done on the project since and would keep doing?
Every movie we do it. It's really valuable, not just for the producers to hear how long the movie's going to be, the exact duration basically, but then also what the tone of it is. And so we can send it out to the cast and crew for all of these movies that we make, and they've already heard the movie a couple of times, and they can engage with it on their drives to set of like what scenes we're shooting today. It just becomes this really valuable asset to feel like we're all making the same thing and we all know what's going on. Like if you're a gaffer, you don't have the time to read the sides of the script that day, and because you're doing everything. And so it's like, well, if you can listen to it on the drive there, it's great. And it's like, you can add it to the movie, and that just becomes this base layer that we all get to collaborate to make the movie better. I don't know, I love it, and I think it's a really valuable asset to our movies.
Got a question from Steve Whitley, who's asking about the transition from producing to directing. Did you find that challenging? And if so, did you suffer from imposter syndrome?
Hey, Steve, of course, I still do. For a long time, I was a decent producer. I was really encouraging, and I wanted to create an environment of being exactly what I hoped, if I was ever a director, I would get, of just, respect for the vision, respect for the auteur, and support in every possible way. And then when I was transitioning into becoming a director really, like actually, I'd already done it once, but then like coming back into it with the Thunder Road short, I had this team of people that were all wonderful supporters of mine as a producer. And so I could ask advice on how to, sculpt something and frame something. And so that was really wonderful to have this team of people that were, that wanted to help. But then, yeah, of course. And then also, if you see other directors, if you work on other directors' sets, you're on the sidelines watching them give a bad note or a bad direction, and you're like, I think I have a good idea of how that could be better. And then like to sit in a movie theater that you've produced and to feel the audience not engage with it for the reasons that you knew that they weren't. Once you build that up too many times, it's like, all right, well then screw it. I'm just going to try it. There's no magic to it. Like you put a hat on and then you're the director, and it's like, all right, well, no, let me just try it.
And you were wearing so many hats during the production of Thunder Road. You were writing it, directing it, performing in it. You were also editing it and the composer. Jonathan Hackett wants to know how you managed to stay sane and unstressed doing all of that.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah, if you're going to do everything, you are alone with the thing, and it's your job to make sure that it's great. There's a moment on Toy Story 2 when they had a delivery. They're supposed to go directly to DVD, and then they found out that Disney was going to put them into theaters. And John Lasseter said, "Oh no, it's not going to be. Now it has to be really good. Oh no, now it has to be really good." And so he built a bed under his desk and spent the next 3 months, maybe 4 months, sleeping in the office to ensure that the thing was going to be any good. You lose your mind with this stuff, but that's that's kind of a collateral damage when it comes to making these things. It's not fun. I'm talking about it like it's a wonderful gift that you're giving to the community, and it's just not. It's hell to do this stuff, but sometimes that's what it takes. If the music isn't very good and you're getting stuff from your composer and it's not good, it can't go in the movie. It has to be good. And so you're gonna have to learn how to play an instrument, or you're gonna have to learn how to mix it properly in Premiere or Pro Tools. Like it's gonna drive you nuts. And that's sometimes what it takes, especially if nobody's taking you seriously and you don't have any money. You kind of have to learn everything.
You ended up self-distributing the film.
Yeah.
And how was that process? And would you do that again?
Yeah, I think so. We're going out with the new movie to a couple of different larger streamers to say, would you want to do a global buy of our new feature? But if they say no, that's the easiest thing in the world. I get just to go, all right, cool. Then we're just going to do it the same way that we did Thunder Road. So yeah, so self-distribution makes it sound like it was just us driving around in the van and selling copies of the movie. I think that's the image that we all still have about self-distribution. But really, you have, because of the technology that's out there now, the exact same connection to all the platforms that any smaller distribution company would have. So you can spend, $1,500 or $2,000 getting your movie onto iTunes, cable networks, like pitched to streamers through aggregators like Quiver Digital. And that's exactly what any other smaller distribution company is going to do, except they're going to take all of your money. So we had a wonderful team in France that were distributors. We went to Cannes with the feature, and then we met Pan Am. We met Vertigo in the UK, and we just kind of made deals with them, and they were like, cool, we want to do a big theatrical release of this thing, and we'll do like a little tour, and it'll be fun. And they're lovely. And it's like, these are people that I want to actually spend time with. So they're handling those territories. And then we just do the exact same thing for the United States. I think, anybody can do it now. It's all becoming democratized. And the reasons for giving your property to other people who don't actually care about it as much as you, all of those are entering smaller pockets that will just, be deplenished over the next several years. There's no reason why you're not putting, especially now, like there's no such thing as theatrical. There's no reason. Everything's collapsing. Everything's becoming really democratized. Like, we're kind of all owning our own TV channels and YouTube channels, and it's just up to us to put it out ourselves.
And I'd love to talk a little bit about, it's maybe something that a lot of the people watching will hopefully have to contend with, in a couple of years' time once they've made their first feature. But there can be a sort of time at which, you've made a feature, it creates a splash, you sort of win some awards. How do you navigate the process after that? Either that sense of sort of come down from having done something special, or to sort of navigate, the many people who want a piece of you after that, or who don't.
Yeah, I never had that. I mean, really, if you're doing it yourself, you're no longer a subordinate, you're the competition. So it can be an incredibly lonely experience making something that's good, or making something at all. Like you're taking, I think the industry ends up seeing you as taking up real estate on the iTunes platform away from their movies. And I never had to worry about that. And I'm very lucky. I have a great manager. Actually, I mentioned him, Benjamin Wiesner, who was my co-producer on a bunch of different projects throughout the years, only has one client as a manager, and it's me, and it's just my buddy. And we ended up.
Is that because you're really hard work?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. For Christmas, I got him a giant bottle of Tylenol because I'm such a fucking headache. I can imagine. I'm enough of just one client. It's nice.
And so how did you get from Thunder Road to your next two projects? So I know one of them is a big studio movie, a sort of werewolf movie. How did that come about?
So kind of comically. So I'd written this werewolf movie that we were pitching to different digital platforms when I was still only doing shorts. I hadn't made the Thunder Road feature yet. nobody trusted us to make anything longer. And so I was pitching it to these digital platforms as like, oh, this could be a web series that then we could also package as a feature. So I could like re-edit it as a feature, which is all I really wanted to do in the first place. At that time, Quibi hadn't been made. Like all of these different places that are kind of doing the same stuff hadn't been popular yet. And so I had like pitched it to a couple of different places, big studios and stuff, and done this kind of tour, shaking hands and talking about the project. And it was a really cool project. It's like this, you know, cop movie about a werewolf in a small town. It's like, it's a really cool idea. And I was like, oh, this could be fun. It's kind of like Thunder Road, and I would love to act in it, but I don't need to act in it. We could get somebody else if we needed to. And then nobody took it seriously. Everybody said, no, you can't do it. You can't do that. And then we won South by Southwest with the feature. And then I got emails back from the same people that were saying, like on the same email chain, being like, hey, we're not interested in doing this thing. Be like, hey, tell me about that. What's going on with that werewolf movie? What's happening? Like the script didn't change at all. The idea didn't change at all. It just, in Hollywood, it's just like, it's like the stock market. It's like, okay, well, this stock is doing well. Or it doesn't matter what the company does, just screw it. We'll just like invest in it. So that was kind of funny. And then I ended up not going with those people and instead went with a buddy of ours, Dan Kagan, who was an executive at Orion Pictures. And they were starting up and like making awesome features with independent filmmakers. And we just said, yeah, we want to do it. They said, yeah, we want to do it. And so we shot it in Utah in March of last year. And it's really fun. It was like the first time I've ever done anything that big with like 50 people on set at any given time. Yeah, that's how that movie came about.
And did you have to approach that, you know, in terms of it being on a much bigger scale, did you have to approach that in quite a different way as a director?
Yeah, sure. You become a diplomat entirely. So, and also like, I was 31 when I was doing it, and you realize very quickly that people don't really want to push a dolly for a 31-year-old. Like you kind of have to be a politician at all times and compromise constantly in a way that you don't have to if you have the camera and you're like, just give me the thing, I'm going to get the insert shot. If you have 50 people on set, it feels like you're taking an aircraft carrier just to go to the grocery store. And there's like, it just takes forever to do anything. And I learned a huge amount. That was its own education in diplomacy alone. But then no, I mean, like really, it's a very different experience than doing an independent film. And so after that, even before we had delivered it to the studio, I was already fundraising through the internet to make another independent film. Because I was like, all right, I just need to get that out of my system and focus on doing stuff that we have complete control over.
Mm. And of course, you know, thinking about the sort of the world we're in now, in lockdown, it's very hard for anyone to go onto set or even thinking about making films of whatever scale. And you know, this sort of idea of just going and picking up a camera and just sort of going for it doesn't quite ring true for some of the filmmakers who'll be watching at the moment, which is part of what the sort of short it out competition is about sort of finding new ways of being creative and sort of staying creative in our current circumstances. How are you finding you're able to sort of stay creative and stay focused, or are you finding, I mean, certainly I'm finding that, you know, I feel like I should be, you know, watching the entire Bergman catalogue and being really productive, and I'm really struggling. How about you?
Yeah, no, I can't focus on anything. It's terrible. Like I end up spending, I'll get a notification on my phone and then it'll just send me down a rabbit hole because everything is so interesting right now. Like I want to see how we're part of this crazy historical event that's happening, this tragedy and genocide in slow motion. And I want to see how everybody's dealing with it to understand more about humanity. I don't know. I'm very interested in that stuff. And so I spend 2 or 3 hours on my phone just looking at it because I saw that one notification. And so now I have to have my girlfriend hide my phone and turn it off during the day so I can focus on the edit. And then I have friends of mine like Danny Madden who are these incredible filmmakers, and he's made 2 short films that are incredible that he's put up on Vimeo in the last like 2 months. One of them animated, and it's like, how do you have the focus and the willpower to do that? I can't focus on anything right now. I'm writing a little bit, and I'm able to finish this movie, but I just applaud anybody who's able to focus on anything creative right now. But then to answer your question about not being able to be on set and the DIY ethos, yeah, it's a terrible thing to think that I had my full education of how to make movies from being on set and understanding how long it takes to set up a certain light or an angle or what lensing to use. And that is an education that is going to be lost on this entire generation of kids who are coming up right now, for the most part. Yeah, it's a real tragedy for independent film. And I think we're going to be stuck in it for a long time.
And is there any sort of answer to that? Or, you know, if you look back over your career and think, you know, are there other ways, if you had been stuck in this moment at an earlier point in your career, are there, sort of looking back, things that you could have done, you know, other skills that you could have built up, or other resources that perhaps emerging filmmakers can be thinking about using at this time?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, the majority of the commercials that I've seen have been stock footage, have been people that, like, you know, take pictures or video of their neighborhoods and people in masks, and that's a buck business. Like, you can upload to Vimeo stock or Shutterstock or Getty Images, and like, if you're doing it safely, you can still be generating content that then people can license all over the world. That's a revenue possibility for filmmakers. Learning animation, learning sound design. If you still want to stay inside of the film landscape, those are kind of the only ways to do it, I think, ethically, unless you are a one-man band and are going out and shooting documentary stuff, you know, ethically. I don't foresee, like, to answer your question, if it happened to me, I was a very depressive person at that time, like graduating from film school after the housing crisis. I graduated in 2009 and there were just no jobs. And so I kind of quit after that, where I was like, all right, this whole thing has happened to our generation. What am I supposed to do? And y'all have it so much worse. Like, I mean, the fact that, you know, the Generation Z is going through this stuff is like, y'all have been screwed twice by global economic shifts, and I only had the one. Like, I can't imagine what the ethos is behind people these days in younger positions. And so I think that's going to just create this new generation of, you know, nihilist style filmmaking, and like or Vonnegut style filmmaking, where it's like, okay, we actually are all in this together, and both are fine. I think both are very rational reactions to this thing. But yeah, I would say I'm learning After Effects. I'm learning Pro Tools. I'm just learning. Like, I think, like, learning different skills that add to my value, and then doing other stuff, delivering groceries. Like, I'm finding other ways to have a different revenue stream, because I don't think I'll have one anytime soon.
When we talked earlier in the week, we were talking about, you know, resources and, you know, sort of research that filmmakers can be doing. And you mentioned how valuable you'd found Short of the Week when you were, my God, that's a big bottle.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, it must be terribly distracting.
Are you drinking bleach?
Yeah, that's right. The president said it's healthy. So I've been doing it since he was on the podium. I'm not feeling too good.
Good. Short of the Week.
Yeah. Short of the Week is incredible. Short of the Week, I found a way to search channels on the website. So you can search for short films that have tags of Sundance or South by Southwest or Cannes. And right before I was doing the Thunder Road short film, I realized I had been making these movies that were, you know, visions. There were these things where I was like, if I just care about it enough, and I really care about these characters enough, that will make something that is profound and really wonderful. And it just wasn't true for me. I was just making stuff that only I cared about. And I didn't really understand what made a good story or what was culturally or socially significant. from the people who watch everything. And so finding the short of the week channels for these film festivals, I got basically, admission to these film festivals. It was like having a badge and going and watching these films that, these programmers programmed throughout the years. And it really did help to set my metronome of what was good movie making. And it was all shorts, it wasn't features. So it was accessible. And a lot of the shorts that won with us at Sundance in 2016 were single location movies. It was all stuff where it was like, it wasn't about the fanfare. It wasn't about glitz and glamour or production value. It was about telling a story and making the audience feel something with whatever you had. And so that was incredibly revelatory. Yeah, I don't know. Short of the Week really did provide this actual education in shorts for me that I felt privileged to see, because I couldn't travel to all these film festivals.
Yeah, I mean, without putting too much extra sort of productivity pressure on people, I think, spending time just watching as much as possible is really valuable, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, you become an audience member and you kind of analyze what emotions you're feeling in real time and how they do it. And then you're like, all right, cool, I can do that. Like, I think one of the biggest lessons for me was watching short films from a film festival, and it was like 7 of the short films of the 10 were incredible. And it's like, oh man, so cool that people are doing this stuff around the world. And then 3 of them kind of suck. And you're like, all right, well, cool. I just have to make something better than those 3, and then I'll be accepted as a filmmaker. And that was often much more of a conversion factor for me to get up off the couch and do something. Where it was like, yeah, I don't know, that became ambition in me of like, all right, well, I'm gonna do something better than that. I can do something better than that for sure.
You talked about spending some time, when you can, writing at the moment. Are you adapting the work that you're doing to fit what the new landscape might look like and what might be possible in terms of production?
Yeah, I'm writing an animated short right now that I've been trying to do for the last couple of years, actually. But I've been speaking to like Aardman and Leica, and like, they make some of the best stuff. And so I was just like, oh, I'm just going to do it. And so I stayed up late last night writing this thing that's just heartbreaking and like really cute and funny, but also just like it's crazy to read. It's heartbreaking, but it's really good. And so I don't know. I think I am doing that, of like writing stuff that you could probably do with a small crew, ethically, where like if everybody gets tested and if it's a single location, you could do like a cabin in the woods style horror movie if everybody's tested and nobody leaves the property, and you cook all of the meals on site, we've done that before. So yeah, I am kind of writing towards that, and I've had a couple other filmmaker buddies reach out and be like, I think we should be planning to do that as the next movie whenever that's possible. So why don't we all kind of co-write something and have it be fun? So I am doing that, but then yeah, I think most of my thinking has just been in post-production with this thing, and then whenever I need to write, I'll do these other things.
I've got a question here from Ben Desmond, which I'm sure will be relevant for everyone. Hi, Jim. I'm working on my first feature script. What's the best cure for writer's block?
Yeah, I mean, writer's block. I always say, if you have to ask yourself if you're having a heart attack, you're not having a heart attack. Do whatever it takes to make you feel something with the script. And if you like, really, writer's block to me is never what it sounds like, of like being in front of a blank page and not being able to do it. It's always writing something and be like, oh, this sucks. I'm never touching this thing again. And so like, I think really the thing that cures my writer's block is thinking about it enough, going on long walks, listening to music that's like kind of what you'd imagine is the soundtrack of the thing, and then seeing the images in my head and then going, oh, that works, or like, oh, that piece of dialogue could fit here, and then making it not suck. Yeah, just like doing whatever it takes to make the thing not suck.
Question from Josh Merritt. How do you balance the tones of comedy and tragedy so consistently, especially on set? And do you have a particular process and approach when setting the mood with actors?
Hey Josh, how's it going? Yeah, I just do it out loud enough. Like I obviously recorded as a podcast as well to make sure that it's working, or at least to give people an idea of how I think it would work tonally. but yeah, just doing it 1,000 times. If like for the long monologue when I'm shouting at the police station and taking all my clothes off, I just had to do it a bunch at a golf course in the middle of the night when like nobody could hear me. And just by doing it, like you do something and then you'll do 2 sad things in a row, and then you're like, ooh, I think I only need 1 sad thing before the joke. So then maybe I'll just pick which one, or maybe I blend the 2. And so you can kind of feel it when it isn't working or when it's going on too long. And so just by doing it enough, it kind of refines it a little bit. It's like it ends up making it what it needs to be, I've found. And then with comedy and drama and weaving between the two, yeah, you just have to, I mean, language in English is so complex. You just have to do it enough to kind of understand how it's going to work. Like with the opening scene of the feature, there's a moment where I say something out loud, and then in the script I said, I shouldn't have said that. But then I realized you don't have to do that. You just have to have the character go, and then immediately the audience knows that's what he's thinking. Like, I shouldn't have said that out loud. Like, you just have to do it enough to kind of, I don't know, find what works.
Got a couple of questions about editing and about the decision to edit Thunder Road yourself. It's often something directors can be advised against. So why did you decide to edit Thunder Road yourself? And also, yeah, how that thinking came about?
Yeah, so it's always money in that case, but I also am a decent editor. Like I was editing internal videos for Netflix before I started working at College Humor. Like I'm pretty good at the programs, and I used to teach editing at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. So I actually am a good candidate for doing the things. And also, like, nobody's going to care about the movie more than me. So like that is a valuable thing. And like paying an editor to then sit over their shoulder and watch them do it, you can't ensure that they're going to really care about it as much as you do. So that was just kind of a no-brainer to just get me to do it because I'm a good candidate for it. But then also I had my buddy, Brian Vanucci, who edited a bunch of the Lil Dicky music videos that I produced, came down to Austin and did like assembly editing so that we could submit it on time to film festivals. So while we were shooting, it was him and me in the like Airbnb bedroom that he was staying in, and we would deliver him files and he would be throwing stuff together, and we could watch it all as a crew in real time. So like that night we would watch, after we shot something that day, we would watch what he had edited from the previous day, and then just kind of, I'd go in and like tweak things of how I do it, and just like, now you go, and I'd get some sleep and then shoot the stuff the next day. Yeah, I think like just having a team of, and yeah, we had these like test screenings of things that would work and sometimes it wouldn't. Yeah, it's just kind of an open editing bay for anybody that wants to give advice or see the thing that it kind of changes it along the way.
And did you also edit the Werewolf movie?
I had 2 different editors on that one.
And why was that?
I started editing it and I had a cut of it, and then we were getting notes, and I was just really bad at it at that point in the summer. And my buddy Brett Thomas and I were editing it. He's an editor and also a good friend. And we got the film to a point that was like honoring the script. And it was exactly kind of what we wanted to do. And then at a point, he and I only agreed with each other of where the movie should go. And I realized that was detrimental. Because like we were like, oh no, the movie should be this. And other people were like, no, this isn't working. Like, you can't do this. And so then I spent a couple weeks trying to make it work. I realized that I couldn't. And then our buddy Patrick Barnes came in and just revitalized it in such a fresh way, because he didn't care about all of the conversations that Brett and I had. He was like, we got to make this thing good. And so that he and I worked on it together for a couple of weeks, and then delivered it to the studio. Yeah, I decided that was kind of the only way that we could make that project work. With timing, we probably only got 4 of the 6 shots that I had on any of the shot lists, like, you know, for any scene. And so like trying to make things work with fewer takes, just because of the nature of how we shot it, was difficult in the editing room. But then with the beta test, it was all very strictly storyboarded and kind of shot listed with our cinematographer. And so it was very fun. And I don't think I really needed a co-editor. So I'm just editing that one by myself.
So I've got a question from Glenn Maxwell. What are your thoughts about people breaking into the industry who haven't come from one of those big film schools, you know, NYU, UCLA? What's the true reality for filmmakers trying to break into the industry? Do you need to go to one of those big film schools?
I mean, it really, like, I don't know. It really depends. Like, what job do you want in the film industry? Like, if you're trying to get a job in development at a studio, it might have been nice to have gone to film school and see, you know, or study theory and storytelling or screenwriting or something like that. But for the most part, all of my favorite filmmakers these days didn't really go to film school. Like, Trey Schultz was like, had a library card and was like watching Yorgos Lanthimos movies and like just made an agenda for himself of his own education by going to the library and watching a bunch of movies that screened at the Cannes Film Festival. And like, that was his education. Did he need, you know, film school? Probably not. Like, you know, P.T. Anderson dropped out of my college, and like, I don't think he needed a proper education. It really depends. Yeah, I don't think so. And especially now, it doesn't really matter. Like, like I'm signing up to take courses in film online. It's like, yeah, if you have skills, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter about what's on your CV.
And which filmmakers are you most excited about at the moment? What are you watching?
I am watching. I'm watching, so I have a Letterboxd account, and I asked everybody on Twitter kind of what movies I should add to my watch list. And so I'm kind of going through that thread and adding some stuff. And so I'm watching the stuff that everybody says that I should finally catch up on and watch. So it's 1,000 different directors. But then I also got an Arrow Video account on the Apple TV. It's like $4 a month, and you can watch all of these incredible spaghetti westerns and like G.I. horror movies. And so I've been just watching those, kind of binge watching them, like early Dario Argento and like Django, the original like western, like all of these like fun kind of movies where they didn't really care about classical narrative. You can use a crazy zoom shot in the middle of the scene, and like, it's so refreshing to watch the kind of craziness. So that's kind of what I've been watching these days.
Got a couple of questions from people who are going to take part in the 90-second short it out challenge.
Oh, cool.
Do you have any tips for making a 90-second short?
Yeah, so 90 seconds is a good chunk of time. I would say, yeah, make it punchline driven, not necessarily jokes, but also emotionally or like horror, like a thrill. Yeah, if you think about it like that, we're like over 90 seconds. If you think about it like a joke, you have the setup and then the payoff. And if there's a reveal that then twists kind of how the thing was imagined by the audience, I guess that's it. Yeah, just be very conscious of where your audience is on the roller coaster.
Another quick question from Adrian about thinking about audiences. You know, you've come from a background, you know, working online. You're very good at sort of thinking about online audiences. How important is that to you as a filmmaker when you're thinking about a project?
It's everything. I mean, not catering or pandering to an audience, but like knowing or predicting accurately or to your best knowledge where an audience is going to be at any given time. That's so valuable. No, yeah, the golden rule is always know your audience, and like, and that's okay. You can make a movie that has a lot of cursing in it where you slap a corpse at the end because you know children aren't probably going to watch this thing. Like, and then that allows you to sculpt where the humor is of like, is it okay to, you know, say this one kind of off-color joke? I think we're okay there. Like, it becomes this wonderful chemistry experiment where you're able to track it throughout the script and go, I think we're gonna get away with this. I think that's okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think knowing an audience is very valuable. I'm bad. I like read letterbox reviews of the movies and kind of just to get an idea of where, you know, like who the next generation of audiences are going to be. Is it going to have to be more sanitized? Are you not able to say these certain things? And then, or should you like just screw it? And maybe that's an okay thing. I think having a dip test of the audience is very important.
So I've got a question about well, finding an audience in the current climate. And are you thinking at all about the kinds of things that audiences are going to want to watch when all of this is over?
Yeah. So finding an audience now, I mean, I guess we're all, and this has only multiplied the effort of us all being in competition for audience's attention. But yeah, I think it is going to have to be about creating your own fanfare. Like, festivals don't really exist anymore, and the notoriety that you would get from a film festival just isn't the same if it's not in person. And if you are going to release with your film with a festival, is it worth doing that, or is it worth going to a big streamer if it's already going to be online? I don't know how that's going to change everything. I hope it doesn't hurt film festivals, but it probably will. I don't know about getting people to see stuff. I think just however you can. I mean, that was always my goal as a producer, was to get people to see the movies that we produced. And it's hell, especially when you're just starting out. I would say reach out to people. I watch probably 2 or 3 short films a day that people send me on Twitter. Yeah, I don't know. Reach out to people, and then there was a second half of that question that I'm forgetting right now.
Well, it was sort of about kind of both how do you cut through the noise and get people to sort of see things at the moment, but also thinking about tonally what people might want to sort of watch on the other side of this. Are you worrying about that? No,
that's a really great point. Because the majority of stuff that you could see in the theaters was all very sanitized. There's no real cursing, there's no real sex, there's no real violence. And as an independent filmmaker, there's no real humanity. And so as an independent filmmaker, you're able to provide that to an audience, of things that they can't see in a movie theater, they can't see on TV. And so we have this added value where you are winning the audience's attention because you're able to show them what they actually want to see. And because of these giant corporations, they're not able to, do any of the fun stuff that we get to do, because they have shareholders, because, they need to corporately virtue signal. There's 1,000 reasons why they're not able to do the stuff that independent filmmakers are doing. I do think that there is going to be a trend of people not wanting to see the cutesy bullshit anymore. Like, I think that all of us surviving this thing together is gonna make people much more okay with seeing something that's graphic, that makes them feel something. So I think independent film will have a much better shot, not just budget wise, that you can make something small and still be in production safely in comparison to the Hollywood studios, but also narratively that you can make something that connects to audiences better.
And something a lot of people are sort of struggling with at the moment is anxiety and sort of worrying about where their careers are going to go, whether there will be a career out there after all of this, whether anyone will be financing films, whether anyone will be hiring films. Do you have any sort of words of encouragement or support or positivity that you can share with our emerging filmmaking community?
I think it depends on the science. You respond to the science, right? So if there is a vaccine that actually does work, how we all dream that it will, in January, then maybe, we could be all on set and, having the same kind of careers and upward mobility that we should be having right now. I don't know. So I guess that's hopeful, but really my favorite artwork, like Slaughterhouse-5, talks about the depths of humanity and how graphic it can be. Thunder Road is the story of Job as a comedy. It's this guy who just gets kicked in the nuts every turn, and like it's a nightmare to watch, but then it's uplifting at the end because it all works out for him. I don't think that considering the negatives is actually something that will create less happiness for people. And so I think that safeguarding yourself by considering a world where we're not able to break social distancing rules a year and a half from now by coming onto a film set, I don't think that is a negative endeavor. And I think we should all be imagining that that's what's going to happen, so that when we are kind of able to come together sooner, we'll at least have prepared for the worst. So I wish that I had more words of encouragement, but you can get that from John Krasinski. I will not give that to you. I'm sorry.
But I think that, you know, the message of using this moment as a real opportunity to think about what comes next, and being adapting and being agile is also really important.
Yeah, like imagine that this is going to be for a while. What would you have to do? And then, like, it's funny, I get people asking me questions like, well, what should I be doing right now? And all the questions that I get are Googleable, where it's like, you can do, like, what are other things in film that don't require being on a film set, or like don't require being next to somebody? It's like all of these things you can find out, and we should be doing the research right now to find new revenue streams and how anybody's able to do it outside of being on a film set.
We have at least 50 more questions that I could ask you, but I'm afraid we're now at an hour, so we're out of time. But Jim, thank you so much for being here with us, and for answering everyone's questions. It's been really inspiring to hear about your journey. Just to say that we've got another one of these Filmmaker Front Room Q&As next Thursday. Farah Abashwara will be joining us, so please look out for the link for that. There's also a evaluation form that I think one of our that either Cass or Alex will have posted in the chat function, so do have a look at that. Jim, thanks so much. This was really great.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Cheers.